I wanted to discuss a little bit more on the potential of AppleCard, which Apple launched yesterday, and why I think it's very much just in its beta phase. Not just because it was announced yesterday and it won't be available until the summer, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that Apple may have struck gold here, and there could be a lot more in the future for credit cards and Apple when you think about what other credit card companies are doing now that Apple has entered the field. So that's what we're going to be discussing in today's video. Let's begin. Now, I always find it quite interesting when Apple enters a market that they really didn't have much of a presence in before, because you always get the meshing and the merging of these weird audiences. So sort of like how a lot of techie people out there like me are super into Tesla. Once the Tesla starts coming out and competing against all these muscle cars, then all the car people on YouTube start meshing with all the tech people, and usually it creates a lot of friction and a lot of anger, and it's just kind of interesting to see it played out. I'm seeing something maybe not as hostile, but kind of similar to Apple entering the credit card business. I don't know if you guys know this, but YouTubers that talk about credit cards are actually a thing, and that's a whole genre of YouTube. And now seeing a lot of those Apple credit card fans merging with the pre-existing credit card fans is seeing a lot of friction and a lot of interesting viewpoints of people saying, well, Apple Card is cool, but I have my American Express card, or I have my MX Platinum, or I pay for a certain annual fee so that I can get certain benefits with this credit card that I have, and it just kind of merges two audiences that normally don't merge. But ultimately, I think this is a great thing because, for one, it opens up more and more users on the platform to, oh, there's this topic on YouTube that I didn't know much about, and since Apple or Tesla is entering this field, now I'm gonna learn more about it. But ultimately, what I'm getting at and what I was hinting at in the thumbnail of this video is no, not just that the Apple Card will come in multiple colors, more importantly, that Apple is most likely aware of the higher tiered, higher, more advanced version of credit cards that already exist. Think about it for a second. Apple is full of software engineers, market heads, marketing geniuses, and to dumb it down, basically, it's safe to say that a lot of people who work at corporate Apple, they're probably pretty rich. They probably have a lot of money, which means a lot of them likely know a lot about credit cards and how you can take advantage of them. For those of you out there who didn't know, there are multiple different kinds of credit cards. Some of them that require no fee and are free to use, much like the Apple Card that was launched yesterday. There's not really much of a sign-up fee. It's free to apply for one, and then you start getting bonuses as you pay off your credit card. Or in Apple's case, you get that cash back instantly as soon as you make a purchase, which I think is really interesting about it. But all I'm saying is the people in corporate Apple know a lot about those credit cards because I'm sure they're people who have lots of money, which means there's probably a good chance that a lot of the people who work at Apple have those higher tiered and higher end American Express cards or credit cards in general that they pay annually for so that they can get better benefits. And overall, while you do end up paying for the credit card as a down payment every single year, because of all the benefits and all the points that you rake up with those credit cards, they end up paying for themselves, and you can actually make quite a bit of money when using certain credit cards. So all I'm trying to say is Tim Cook, Craig Federighi, Phil Schiller, I'm sure they know about this kind of thing, and probably a lot of them could be in invite-only credit card programs. I can't confirm it myself, but they're aware of those higher tiers. So what Apple is doing with the Apple Card launch this summer is they're stepping into the waters. They're not jumping in all the way. They're kind of dipping their toes into the water of how can running a credit card business go? How profitable can this be? And if it is profitable enough, which I imagine a lot of people who want the incentives and want those cash rewards to come back to them are likely going to sign up, and people who end up paying that interest for things they can't afford right away, Apple's likely to end up making a lot of money off of the first wave of people who sign up for the Apple Card, which will include yours truly. Even though I always pay off my credit card, I've never had an overage fee or anything like that. I have great credit scores, which is something you have to keep in mind for these higher tier credit cards that already exist. You kind of have to apply and get accepted into them. If your credit is really bad, obviously the credit card company is not going to give you that higher tiered credit card. So Apple's experimenting with it, right? They're testing it out. They're going to launch this, see what kind of revenue they can get off of it, see if it's possible for Apple to make a good amount of money off of Apple Card. And they're also not mining any of the data collected like other credit card companies do when you use your credit cards all the time and then sell them to other companies for research purposes, this is all kept in secret because Apple cares about privacy, which is good, but also means sacrificing on a lot of profit, meaning perhaps the Apple Card won't be as financially successful as it is for American Express, but I think Apple's okay with that because they're not anticipating Apple Card to be their main source of revenue. Apple, of course, is still making a ton of their money from hardware. There are other services that they're now launching, meaning profit margin for Apple Card can be a lot lower and still be important to Apple compared to a company like American Express, where that's almost everything they need, and they kind of rely on that, so they need profit margins to be at a certain level in order for the company to stay alive. I think it makes sense that later down the road, Apple, if they do see success in Apple Card, will start launching more incentive programs that will compete more heavily with those higher tier credit cards that are already out there. A lot of people brought up when they launched the Apple Card, they were like, the benefits for it of getting the cash back, 2% on Apple Pay purchases, which for a lot of people you may not do, but Apple's clearly trying to push the NFC and contactless payment method, 1% when you use that physical titanium card, and 3% on Apple purchases. A lot of credit card gurus out there were like, yeah, okay, this makes a lot of sense for Apple users, but there's definitely better credit cards out there that will give you better benefits, plus all of the higher tier credit cards that you have annual fees for that Apple's clearly not even competing with yet, given this is a everyday consumer credit card just meant for average spending, not anything too fancy. But I think once they launch the Apple Card, maybe next year or perhaps even a year after that, they may not rush into this right away. Apple will start launching programs I'm anticipating called Apple Card Plus or Apple Card Gold, and you'll get those fancy space gray or actual, not literal gold, but they look like the same gold as the gold Apple Watches or gold 10s Maxes out there. Apple Cards that mean that you're in a higher tier part of the Apple Card system. This meaning that there could be annual fees or perhaps even monthly fees depending on how Apple wants to handle this credit card, but the incentives, not just for everyday purchases, but also for Apple Pay purchases and Apple Store and online purchases you make directly through Apple could be incentivized more greatly if the annual or monthly fees go a lot higher. That could make them far more competitive to the American Express credit cards out there, and for a lot of people out there who know they're going to be big spenders and know they're going to put a lot of money on that credit card, they want to take advantage of those bonuses. They want to take advantage of those rewards programs more than just the average consumer would with the free Apple Card that's primarily going to be used in people's wallet apps, but I'm sure it'll cost a certain price if you want to get that physical Apple Card made of titanium, though we haven't seen an official price point on it yet. But given signing up for Apple Card appears to be free, there's absolutely no way they're going to send you that fancy titanium card free of charge. If they did, that would be dope, and I think a lot of people out there would just sign up for the service so that they could get that card just because it looks cool. But I've also talked to a few friends that have mentioned that they're kind of annoyed that Apple has made the titanium metal Apple Card something that anyone can just have access to now, because before that had to be something you worked towards as you got your credit score higher and higher, and you had to be a customer with a certain bank for a long enough time. Perhaps that's why Apple's not launching those higher tier credit cards right away. They want to see what people sign up for the Apple Card right away and are using it consistently and being a reliable customer for them, and then they can see, okay, this is a user that's been using Apple Pay Cash and Apple Card for a long time. They have good reliability. They have a good credit score. We're going to allow them access to the higher tiered Apple Card Plus membership, which for annual fees allows you to have much better benefits. But once again, it will not be available to everyone, just the people that Apple has seen be good, reliable users of the Apple Card service for a good amount of time. But yeah, a lot of people are like, I had to work really hard to get to that point where I could get the metal titanium built credit cards out there. Apple's not the first one to do it, by the way. And now with Apple Card, anyone can just do it, making it kind of a everyday average thing, which isn't exactly Apple's fault because Apple's the company that wants everything to feel premium and high end, but also try to make it for the everyday person so that they can get it in everyday people's pockets. As Apple's mentioned in the past, they don't want to be an elitist company. They don't want to just specialize in jewelry. They want everyone to be able to use their products. So when Apple designs a credit card, yeah, they make it out of titanium. I'm sure Johnny Ive gave his approval on that credit card design, but at the same time, it does make metal credit cards that do exist out there kind of less special. Though that's probably what Apple did for the computer industry for a lot of people. Before Apple came into the picture, having a computer, you had to build it and you had to know how to use it and it had to be fancy, and then Apple shows up and makes it more user-friendly and available to the masses so that you don't have to be a computer expert to use computers. Well, premium paying credit card users out there, now they know how the high-end PC builders of decades ago feel of Apple making something normal and accessible to the masses. So regardless, I don't really care about that because I'm not in those higher end programs, but if Apple does launch Apple Card Plus or Apple Card Pro in the future and allows for big savings and big money back whenever you use that gold card or that space gray card, you can bet that yours truly is going to be first in line to apply for that and hopefully get accepted into that program. We'll see. Let me know what you think of the potential of AppleCard being more advanced in the future and expanding down in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.